Hello guys, good day to you. I'd like to review a book today. I'm currently working on another book, but anyhow, I've read this one. I enjoyed it. For a matter of stars, I'll disclose that at a later point in time. There's a lot of questions that I'd like to answer in order to be thorough about it. So starting at the beginning, I was captivated at page 18, where the nanny Ellen, in the setting of Dublin, which is Ireland, it was about the time of the potato famine. A mysterious woman comes out of the mist from nowhere, and she's taken in by this family. So the Stoker family. Well, she begins to heal the infant that is Stoker, and from there, at page 18, it's mentioned her eyes phase over in different colors when she's healing or feeding, and she's created this bond between Stoker and the nanny Ellen. Well, her family's captivated by her. She sits at the dinner table and won't eat. She's disappearing for lengths of time. She sleeps in a dark room at all times. She'll nurse the to-be-born child that's part of the family. She stows him away in a dark room in a baby's playpen. But anyhow, that's a little off subject for the romanticized feature to this. But there's a later part of the book. There is Strigwa, which I found interesting that they've added a little bit of element to the myth side of the lore, and it caught my attention at first because at that point in the book it was a slow drudge. To speak negatively of it, you want to mention both pros and cons for the books, but after I read it, it's kind of like, did I sense pride in reading it? Somewhat I did. Is it young adult fiction? It is, and I enjoyed it. So, with that being said, there was passages that I just cannot give up. I will call it that. Towards the end, the very ending caught me off guard. I did not expect it to end that way. I did mention that prior to the prologue of it, in the beginning we noticed that there are 3 siblings, the Stoker family, and then the young infant that's to come about, which is not Stoker. So you have Matilda, you have Thornley, which is the older brother, and Matilda is the younger sister. Stoker is somewhat the middle child, and then you have the infant that's brought about. But so they begin to suspect the nanny Ellen is up to something, that Matilda's captured an ability of drawing peculiar scenes with absolute beauty. She's inspired by nanny Ellen. Well, it comes to that after nanny Ellen's disappearance, Matilda mentions she's drawn her throughout the course of her lifetime and has yet never found the acquiescence, if you will, that is nanny Ellen. It's always seemingly obstinately another woman. Well, Thornley mentions his uncanny stowaway of nanny Ellen's hair in order to always be safe and sense her. But in turn, in retrograde, that is the two-sided token where nanny Ellen knows how Thornley is doing. And Bram Stoker, of course, has an uncanny connection to her at all times because he's unknowingly fed from her his entire life. So I found that interesting. Be that as it may, there are questions that arise that I will not be able to answer thoroughly without looking at a backdrop. I know that there's book review questions that everyone would want to answer, like if this was set in a different setting, how would we feel? If it was set in a colonial setting, would we think that it'd be more of a preamble to raising pitchforks to capture the Nanny Ellen? Or would we be more accustomed to certain mannerisms to where we intrude in her space, like perhaps the southern drawl says, hey, we're gonna just walk into someone's room unknowingly to what's beyond the door and not caring because we're so innately close kin, we're so close. Yeah, so they definitely provided respect for her in her little quadrant, if you will, her little dorm room. So features that progressed while Nanny was away, they grew up for a while, and Stoker was captivated by theatrics, and he had a roommate who was a part of theatrics, holding grasshoppers in a jar and watching them pile up. So there's a little uncanny quote there. So the more mystifying features, the more elements of the lore, do they intrigue me? There was elements that atypical vampires would progressively develop. Turning into mist, living for many, many years, avoiding the sun, drinking blood, but they did not mention dismemberment, dismemberment, and the ability to live on while not maintaining a solid one-piece vessel. They did not mention that, so there's element there that I didn't really expect. Vampire Diaries, you wouldn't think Elena to run around without an arm or a hand, as such in this book happened to reveal. So that was a little riveting. Slow to progress, and it was kind of ignored from my end because I did read this through the course of 2 weeks to a month, and it's simple, about 450 pages, no, 481 to be exact. So it was okay. Thornley, of course, progresses his career in the medical field, and he has that piece of hair with him, that lock of hair. But I would like to ultimately sum up how I feel about the end of the book. I think it ended sardonically. It's a word I like to use between me and my cousin. We are rather ditzy at times, but sardonic, it's kind of like satire and irony. It's like you kind of know it's going to end in that plausible, like that pause, that sense of normality. You have your forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning, and they totally normalized what you would expect with the antagonist about. So the antagonist seeks them out, and just unreasonably, he's fallen in love with Nanny Ellen. So, you would think that after all those years of living in the afterlife, you would find some minute sense of appreciation for what life is, and the beauty of free will. So after envying to long for real life and the departing of it. Anyhow, yeah, with Thornley, there's a medical practicum, if you will, during the midst of the book, where the antagonist really begins to pick up. But Nanny Ellen, she was alright. She offered a great little stance to about how humanity still endures when you choose the light. Maybe that's kind of the element of the book. Maybe that's the moral. It's to choose humanity more than personhood and principalities. Like, you can't say, I've saved you and now you owe me. To seeking virtue via the terms of Machiavellianism, to where it's more aggressiveness You can fear and you can love your boss, but they have to implement the right formula to what it is to be a boss. You have to have both those elements. And so J.D. Barker and Dr. Stoker. Stoker is the great nephew of Bram Stoker. So this is a prologue. Is it prologue and epilogue? So this is the prologue to Dracula. And I love this snippet towards the end of the book where Dracul becomes Dracula. They're modernizing it in a few dispersed moments of chit-chit. So it's like a short silhouette of really expression between a convenience store customer where Stoker is hosting away his dreams. He's followed his dreams after Nanny Ellen's departed. So you have to read the book and find out what happened to Nanny Ellen, because there's a lot of mysticism revolving around her. You can tell by the alabaster skin. You get a theme of virtue, innocence, really, and I appreciate it. I enjoyed reading it for 480 something pages. Still a young adult novel. There wasn't a ton of language that's set in Old English, Old Irish. There wasn't a lot of Australian strange terms like you can find in... That's a book that's on my shelf to be read. Where is it? It's right over there. I could have been more prepared for that. James Hogg in The Confessions of a Justified Sinner. The Confessions of a Justified Sinner, where it's about predetermination. It's more of an Oxford book, prestigious. I would recommend that. It has a doppelganger effect. Anyhow, that's off subject. But yeah, Dracul. I enjoy Dracul. I enjoy the elements of enhanced abilities. That is the introspective notion for Dracula. I can only presume, as I haven't read Dracula. So there's a school of elite vampires mentioned in the book, and that was kind of a performing element, to where it's, you have DeMacy, define, measure, analyze, improve, control. So there, the Strigoi, which are part of the antagonist clique, but then you have the school of advanced elite vampires. That to me is performing. That says, let's progress into the next book. I enjoyed that. It allowed a lot of imagination, to where it also inspired the idea of Twilight, the recap of it. But anyhow, yeah, I enjoy it. I like the vibe it produced while reading it. Granted, I kind of switched to a different shift at work. I was new to the atmosphere, people, the culture. But, it did allow me to stand off a little bit and embrace the culture slowly. Yeah, it did. But did I like the element overall of Dracul? I did. Prior to this, I read Dating a Narcissist by Reminder Slava. And prior to that, I read Dante's Inferno, his Descent into Hell. But yeah, there's many books that I will be reading soon. I can tell you that on my shelf, which I've just bequeathed the gift for $2.12 via thriftbooks.com. If you spend enough, they'll give you a free book. Well, I ordered The Cloisters by Kathy Hayes, and it's about tarot cards, Gothic museums, art restoration, and I look forward to that. 200 something pages. It's probably a weekend read, I would think, but then again, I like to read on my work break, to be totally honest. But Dr. Stoker and J.D. Barker, some nifty illustrations in there that you would expect to be more cliche into the matter of art cinematography or movie cinematography, the making a movie type of vibe. There's a demand to stay original without being so geared into having it made into a movie. And you'll notice that they try to deviate away from that, the mainstream, or just I want to make so much money, by adding certain elements that take longer to discuss than needed. But yeah, so if you want to find yourself in perhaps some mystifying mogs, some dark rooms, and some strange parlors, I look into gesturing this book for you. So there is Dracul by Dr. Stoker and J.D. Barker. So if you enjoy it, let me know. Drop a line. If you want to recommend a book, I absolutely look forward to that. I'm assuming that my speech patterns will pick up more. Certain days you have those neural synapses firing stronger than others. But then again, I did read this book, I would say, over a month ago. About 3 weeks ago. But yeah. So hop on that boat to Munich, and we will see you later.